So I'm here changing the alternator on this 2019 Chrysler Pacifica Limited. We replaced the batteries. We had the auto start stop fail. The error came on and we didn't really do anything. Took it to the dealer. Said we had to have full batteries. We replaced both batteries, small auxiliary and the main, about $400 at AutoZone. Error didn't go away. Dealership said the next thing to do would be to drive the vehicle 500 miles in a week. And that was the actual manual procedure to reset the entire system, even though the batteries were completely disconnected. So it must be something in the programming. I had a sneaking suspicion there was something else going on, so I went and had the alternator tested. Not sure why the dealership wouldn't have done that, but had that tested and sure enough failed. And then driving down the road, looking at your voltmeter on your dash, should at least be 13.7 if you have a functioning alternator, good battery system, charging. And it was dropping to 12.4 at times, which is the resting voltage of the batteries typically. Normally even higher than that, but nominal. So yeah, we have a bad alternator. This was a huge pain. If you're not used to working on modern vehicles, which this is one of the newer vehicles we have, there's so much stuff to remove. There's not too many videos out there of this, and they're not as thorough as I would like. So you're gonna spend about 45 minutes to an hour you taking off all of the under covering here, the cowling, whatever you want to call it, the protective. There's a plastic shield that goes up here. It's black, at least ours was. And you have a lot of 10 millimeter bolts that go through. You will need body clip pullers. Highly recommend. It's angled. There's different sizes, smaller. But I think I got this at Harbor Freight or AutoZone, O'Reilly's. You know, they all probably carry it because you're going to need to pull out a couple clips like that. Okay. And then there's a white one. This one snapped because it's cold, of course, but it does pull out the same. So you're going to remove these screws down here all the way around on the bottom. All the way up. Those are all 8 millimeter down here and 10 millimeter. There's also a plastic nut like this that you'll need to, I spun it just to break it free and then kind of pulled it off with pliers. That gives you a little bit more room in here to see the belt routing, as well as get to the belt tensioner from below if that's what's convenient for you. But ultimately just the belt routing makes it a little easier. But you have to take these screws off on the bottom, and then to get that big cover off where your oil pan access bolt is, that cover, usually right here, there's 10 millimeter screws in the middle there too, and they're all down on the bottom. You got to take all those out. And then, like I said, the 10 millimeter or 8, I think they might be 8 millimeter screws that are in the side here, cowling, cover, wheel well liner. You got to take those off on both sides on the bottom. Only a couple over here. There's one right there. Right there. And then I think I might have taken one off. Yeah, on the inside as well. But that allows you to drop that cover. Anyways, you definitely want to do that because you don't have to, but you'll probably be draining a little coolant. Gives you more room to work with your hands. Disconnect the battery. I mean, definitely take the positive off of both batteries because you will be taking the positive cable off of your alternator. So your alternator is down there. That's your alternator. If you have ratcheting wrenches, highly recommend, because you'll be taking those two bolts off. And then there's one down here, which actually might be better to show you. Right there. And it might be easier to get from beneath here. That's a 13 mil. Those are all 13 millimeter bolts. Nearly everything is when you're working up here. For this job at least. Your belt tensioner, because you need to get the belt off, go buy yourself a tool. It's a flat bar, 10, 15 bucks, not sure, but I mean, you need it, because this 3/8 is what goes into the belt tensioner assembly, and it's tight. So you got to pop this little ground strap off. That just goes on your engine mount there. But the belt tensioner, I don't even know, you can kind of see it there. That little tab. Yeah, see that? You got to get down in there and then put your belt tool. Yeah, see that square notch there? That's the belt tensioner looking from below. You have to get the tool down from the top, and then you will push it, and it'll take tension off the belt so that you can get your fingers down in here, and then you can pop the belt off. That's the first thing. Take the battery off, pop the belt off. You can get to those bolts without taking anything off. But the manual, I guess, says take the compressor down out the bottom. That seems to be like it would take a little bit longer. Possibly damage some of these hoses. So this is what I did, and others didn't do this, but they did pop this coolant line off. You pull up on this tab here, pull it up, and then just wiggle this right off. You will lose some coolant, so make sure you have some cardboard, towels down, a drain pan. I didn't lose a lot of coolant, but it just makes a big mess if you're not prepared. So you will lose some coolant on there. Take this hose, tuck it up over here, get it out of your way. I did take this 13 millimeter nut off of that stud there so that I could slide this hard coolant line or compressor line out of the way. And then I took, so let's see, your bracket that holds the arm in its resting position, there's 3 bolts there, took that off. And then this is the filler neck for your windshield wiper fluid. This just pops right out, but it is bolted to the cover that sits over your brake lines there. So take that screw out, and then you can take your filler neck off. And you're just getting yourself some more room to work is what you're doing. So with this line out of the way and that undone, you can you get a lot of wiggle, right? Just pop these little clips off here, and then this can wiggle around and get out of your way. These 3 bolts, 13 millimeter. I saw another video where they took this hose off, but then you're going to lose more coolant, which doesn't make sense to me. A bigger mess, and then you have to top those fluids off. So take those 3 off, and then this just wiggles right out of the way, and you can set it over here. And then then this hose for the most part, and then this hose, which definitely gets in the way, is out of the way over here, tucked away. Pop this clip off. Use a little screwdriver, push it out, and then this wiggles right off. Once you get the alternator loose, after you do those 2 bolts there, 13 millimeter again, and that one on the side I showed you, you have that. It'll be easier. The alternator will wiggle out to the left here, and you'll be able to pop that cover off, which is what has the positive cable, 12-volt cable from the battery. And then underneath that, there's an electrical connection that tells the system how it's charging. But you'd think it would have realized that alternator was bad, and it couldn't have just told us that. But not how it works. So that'll be easier once you take the alternator, you wiggle it over. That's a 13 or a 12 millimeter. The OEM was 13, but the aftermarket alternator I bought from Rock Auto was a 12mm. So here's the ticket. You're not going to be able to get it out right here. One guy said he was able to after a lot of effort. I don't see how. It's just too tight. The manual method is to go straight down. So this is what I did. Get another jack and a wood block. Jack and wood block. And see these two bolts? I would try not to put too much pressure directly on the oil pan, but you're only lifting this up a little bit. Raise it up, put just a hair of pressure on this, right? Don't jack it up yet. And then what you're gonna do, and this made it just real easy. So you have this cover off your brake system here. Take this electrical connection off. You gotta pop this red tab up. It might probably come out like mine did. Push in on the black housing, and then this gray lever flips right up. Pull it all the way till it gets up to here, and then wiggle this back, working the thick harness cable here because it doesn't want to move a ton. Again, it's kind of chilly, but pull that back, and that exposes that bolt, 13mm. You already have access to these two, 10mm. Take those off, set it aside. See that bolt there on your engine mount bracket to the frame? 18mm, there's two of them. There's one right there, and then there's one back here that you'll have access to once you move your coolant reservoir. Take those and loosen them all the way out. Now take your jack, which you have a wood block right there, and just start putting a little pressure. The engine will move up, okay? You're not trying to remove the engine, just move it up an inch or so, and you will have so much more clearance in here, and that alternator will come right out. You have to work it a little bit around the hoses. Just be gentle. You don't want to tear any of these. You don't want to damage anything else, or you're trying to fix something else, right? And I was able to bring that right out, no problem. Here it is. So oriented in the fashion that it would be that you're looking at it from above, like this. There's that tab that the battery cable comes on. There's a nut on there. That is I would say it's kind of indexed. See those holes there? The battery cable has cleats to anchor it in there, and so it doesn't spin. So that'll be fun when you're getting that back in there. And then there's the electrical connection. They get to pop off. Again, there's a little tab. You got to pull it out. So then there's the two bolts, and then you have this little U. So that bottom bolt you don't have to take out. You just got to loosen it. That'll help you. But then honestly, having that engine jacked up, I was able to get the new alternator in there real quick. I put my hose back on, started getting this stuff back together, decided to do a quick video. I'm going to get the hose or the belt routed back on there and get everything back together. And it should be good. So if you have questions, I'll try to do my best to answer anything in the comments. But that was a good method that I didn't see anybody else show. Hope it helps somebody. Good luck.